Hi everybody, sanibonani. Igama lami nguNtando Mdletshe and on this channel siyazifunde iy'ncwadi zethu ezibhalwe ngolimi lwethu bese sizalana soxoxa phela ngale y'tori esisuke siy'fundile. Siy'xoxela laba phela abanqenayo ukufunda nalaba futhi abangenaso isikhathi sokuthi bayifunda. Namhlanje it's a special day. It's a special video that I'm doing today. It's bittersweet because usuke ngibeka ngalo phansi incwadi yethu kade sinayo for the whole 2 months, 28 stories that we've done, short stories that we've done. So this book has been very good to us. So namhlanje sibeka phansi le ncwadi le uLabhoboka Ithumba, but ngeke kube right ukuthi siyibeke phansi le ncwadi singazange phela sinike imiqhele kubanikazi bawo. Sibonge kakhulu amantombazane lawa I shouldn't even say ukuthi amantombazane, these queens asibhalele ley'ncwadi lezi. It was so nice to read a book written by young South African women and bebhala about issues asithintayo ey'mpilweni zethu. So siyabonga kakhulu ukuthi basihlanganisele le ncwadi. Siyabonga i-UKZN ukuthi ibe involved kule project le, such a good project. I hope ukuthi khona ezinye iy'ncwadi futhi abazoza nayo. So sizokwenza nje i-review yayo yonke incwadi siseke ukuthi what did we do ngale ncwadi lena? Yiziphi iy'tori esiy'fundile? What were they about ley'tori lezi? First siyaqala ngencwadi laphayana ngendaba ethi Labhoboka Ithumba, la besifunda khona phela ngomaZulu. Le ncwadi le ndaba le ibibhalwe uNombeko Magubane. uNombeko siyabonga kakhulu ukuthi sibhalele indaba emnandi kangaka. Niyakhumbula laphayana umaZulu bekama-issues e-DNA. Uma umuntu othanda utatakhe, isho utatakhe, hhayi, this story would have been for you. More than anything into esifundile kule story lezi, it was a reminder nje to say ukuthi niyamaphutha, especially lawa a-resulta in iy'ngane not knowing ukuthi ezaphi and questioning ama-DNA ey'ngane. Akuyona into yanamhlanje, akhona amaphutha anamhlanje. Even abazali bethu, they made those mistakes, nathi sawenza lawo ma-mistakes and ney'ngane zethu, they will probably make the same mistakes. But-ke it's very important ukuthi at some point uyikhulule ingane yakho by just telling them the truth because sabantu bamasiko. So sometimes izinto ey'njalo when umntwana uses isibongo ekungesona esakhe, izinto y'hamba zingahambi ngendlela. It's a very nice story-ke lesi esithi Labhoboka Ithumba was a very first story. It's one of the most viewed. It's not the most viewed. I think second in numbers, sihamba siwu-number 2 emavidiyweni engiwenzile. So nje ungahamba uyosibuka, I will link it below. Saphinda senze isitori sesibili-ke la uBakikiza Zophe. uBakikiza Zophe was interesting because bakhulume nge-issue as amaZulu, especially ngizokhuluma as umZulu because ngumZulu, ukuthi i-issue esithi noma siyazi ukuthi it exists but we shy away from it. It's like siyayiziba, pretend as if it doesn't exist. Ikhulume nge-lesbian relationship between usisi laphayana, inkosazana lapha yasebukhosini esekulindele ukuthi ngabe izogana but yona is making a decision ithi hhayi angithandi lowa mina, nangu usisi engimthandayo futhi not only do I love her but ngifuna ukuthi ngimshade. So it's interesting, we wish ukuthi we could have seen ukuthi bagcine beshadile yini. So why go and watch uBakikiza Zophe? uBakikiza Zophe, I did 3 parts because at the time I was not used to ukwenza ama-videos, so akwenzekanga ukuthi ngi-upload as one video. So uBakikiza Zophe, there's part 1, part 2 and part 3. So if you do decide to go and watch uBakikiza Zophe, go and watch both all 3 parts zelokhuzana the story. It's an interesting story. Even the ending yakhona is really interesting. So for me it was interesting ukuthi lo mbhalo samncane and wabhala about this romance story. Wabhala as if ubhala like any other romance story, any other relationship, and wayithatha ilokhu i-lesbian relationship wayifaka at a royal house, a Zulu royal house. So isiphinda abe naso nje umbhali laphayana uLusanda Cele, ngiyasincoma kakhulu. Saphinda-ke saya laphayana imali impande yesono. Imali impande yesono lapha sifunde ngoNonhlanzeko. uNonhlanzeko ukulahleka-ke laphayana kuNonhlanzeko, being that young woman obesesikoleni looking forward to a future, obenebala elimhlophe, and she ends up being killed nje ngento ebhedayo ukuthi abantu bacabange ukuthi uma ngabe ubulala umuntu onebala elimhlophe uzothola imali. It's a really sad story, that one. It ends up i-boyfriend yakhe being suspected as if uyena hlampe ombulele uNonhlanzeko. So go and watch that story, iMalibande Yesondo, sibhalwe uPhumla Maphumulo. Sithe sisuka-ke lapho saya kwindaba ethi uthando lukababa ebhalwe uPenny Lwazana Shares. As you know, most of these writers I wasn't able to find, but this particular writer ngeke ngamthola. And ungabangala ukuthi mncane kangakanani, ebhala isitori esikhuluma nge-issue ebaluleke kakhulu. In our society, mostly we think ukuthi ukungabi khona kukababa or i-absence baba empilweni yengane mostly affects ingane yomfana. And we forget ukuthi amantombazane, they get affected just as much by absence kababa, if not more. So le story lesi sithi uthando lukababa really reminded us ukuthi amantombazane nabo, they get just as much affected by ukungabi khona kababa empilweni zabo as abafana. So go read this is one of the stories I had given a warning ukuthi angikho sure ukuthi it was a story that your kids should listen to, because most of my stories is for the whole family, but this particular one I felt ukuthi as umzali you must listen to it bese uyadecide ukuthi uyafuna yini iy'ngane zakho zilalela. But-ke nisibuke le story esibhalwe uPenny Lwazana Shares, who confirmed to me that at the time she wrote the story, she was a DUT student studying languages. So nje, go and check her ulwazi Shares on Facebook as well. Nimncome phela for umsebenzi wakhe. Sasisuka lapho sekwenza isitori la esithi Lixhoshwa Libhekile. ULixhoshwa Libhekile ngangacabanga recently mase ngiyivala incwadi ngathi yazi, I wish ukuthi uLixhoshwa Libhekile they had put that story at the end of the book, because it was a fun story. I laughed a lot reading that story. It was fun. Nabantu abanye basilalelile nabo basho kanjalo ukuthi it was a fun story. Bebehleka a lot. When I read it, I felt like, okay, it means ukuthi kule ncwadi now and then, because bebekhuluma ngama-issues are serious, I thought ukuthi now and then they will throw us those fun stories, but it looks like this was the only story that dealt with an issue that wasn't so serious. In fact, it was just fun. So that's why I wish they had put it at the end. So after reading all of the serious stories, then at the end we get to laugh because there wasn't much of those stories. Oh, again, I wish they had thrown in more stories that besifana naleli Lixhoshwa Libhekile. uLixhoshwa Libhekile phela siyamkhumbula laphayana ubhuti obewina ilotho, and nange phela usisi waseGoli ethi uyambamba kanti naye futhi ufuna ukumbamba. It was a fun, very funny story. Iqosha Libhekile libhalwe uPhumla Shabalala. Siyabonga-ke kuMashabalala osasibhalela isitori esimnandi kangaka. Then samove on saya uYiphakade Lami. uYiphakade Lami, I can say, because it was the most confusing story to me. This was about this one woman who fell in love in her childhood with somebody and never saw this person, and then washada omunye umuntu, but could never get over that love that she once felt for this person, ongangokuba uza end up efela nje othandweni lwalo muntu. So-ke have uyosibuka le story lesi esithi uYiphakade Lami. Mhlawumbe you will have a different interpretation than I did. Sayenza ne-notes to the right lapho ngisho ama-issues engibe nawo ngalesa story, futhi nama-questions engibe nawo. Sona-ke sibhalwe uNonkanyiso Xaba. One day we hope ukuthi sizomthola uNonkanyiso Xaba asichazele ukuthi what was on her mind ebhala lesa story, ngoba hhayi besifuna umhlaziyi one-experience. Sithe sisuka lapho-ke sabe sifunda isitori esithi uMdonsiswano. uMdonsiswano-ke it was a DNA story too, futhi it was also a DNA about parents' mistakes, because laphayana siyambona umntwana eba nama-issues, amaphupho athile where abantu abadala bayadonsisana ngayo, and then we find out mase kuyiwe enyangeni, we find out ukuthi akazalwa ubaba lo athi uzalwa uyena, kodwa uzalwa umfundisi, anganoma bekungumfundisi uZulu yini. And we see just that short journey of him discovering ukuthi kahle kahle waphi kahle kahle. And it was the same lesson yokuthi as abazali, I think abazali they have a hard time dealing with the fact that ebuncaneni babo they made mistakes, and I think they can make life easier if they can just come out with it at some point and say, listen, while ngidla ubusha bami, these are the mistakes that I made, and maybe you weigh the results of those mistakes, and in fixing lawo maphutha lawo, here is the truth for you, mntanami, so that you can move forward with your life. I hope ukuthi abazali they can learn that, and we can learn that. Ukuthi sometimes we just have to make confessions, so sizokhulula iy'mpilo zabantwana bethu. Umdonsiswano ububhalwe uPatience Halala Mkhize. Na ungahamba futhi uyobuka. Saphinda futhi lapha safunda istory that was very sad, esibizwa ngokuthi ngangithi kuyiqiniso. I thought it was the truth if I do direct translation. The story was sad, but it just had another level of sadness because besiphathelana nokubulawa komntwana uMukela Ubongo. I feel like for those days after ngisifundile le story, Umukela Ubongo became part of my life. It became too real for me because I just couldn't get over the fact that uSenzo at the end uyavuma ngempela ukuthi ingane ibulawe just because ufuna ukwenza umuthi ukuthi awine ekhasino. If you remember, uMukela Ubongo naye benebala elimhlophe, so bekunaleyo nto ukuthi bavumelene nenyanga ukuthi uzobulala uMukela Ubongo bekuyi-step son sakhe uSenzo and emthatha njengobaba wakhe, but at the end wanikela ngayo ukuthi abulawe so ezothola umuthi wokuthi ayowina ekhasini, which he ended up even not getting, and then at the end kwafa abantu futhi. So that story was very sad, and I felt like for uZodwa, who was umma kaMukela Ubongo, I still feel sad as if it's real. I feel like uZodwa is somewhere not having a closure about what happened to ingane yakhe because of what Senzo did. And I think what makes me sad about this story is that because there are people who are going through that, who have had their children go missing and they don't know whether they're dead or not, or abanye abantwana babo batholakala beshonile but bangazi ukuthi babulewe uba. So it's a sad story to not have that closure. It's one thing to lose your child, umngcwabe and stuff, and wazi ukuthi kwenzeke ngabo, but it's another when something like that happens. So go and watch that story. Ngangithi kuyiqiniso sibhalwe nguNhlanhla Mavundla. Sabuye sahamba la sayofunda isitori esithi umkhuleko unamandla. Umkhuleko unamandla ububhalwe uZibuyile Gabayi. Lana besifunda khona ngoJabu Buthelezi. Who had Jabu Buthelezi had done what we expect of kids. He had gone to school, waqeda esikoleni wahamba e-varsity, but it didn't happen for him. It's a South African story, honestly, because it happens to so many people. When you says pushing on that ukuthi ifunde, because we think ukuthi mayiqeda high school they go to varsity, and it's almost like we give them a delusion and when they're done as a child they'll get jobs and they'll be set, which doesn't happen for a lot of South African children. So this was that typical story where ulokhuzana uJabu Buthelezi naye had done that, but he found himself, I think, 5 years esekhaya without a job, but he didn't give up because he still pursued his dream kwisoka. And one day noma wakhe nje wahlala emthandazweni, and then one day and I think what they were trying to teach us, bekunama-lessons nje kulesa story, what they were trying to teach us ikona nje ukuthi sometimes kufanele ukuthi uhlale emthandazweni because kwesinye isikhathi that's the only hope you have. You cannot give up. They were teaching us ukuthi you cannot give up because really khona abantwana sebehlale 5 years after graduation bengawutholi umsebenzi, abanye 10, abanye 15. So bebesifundisa leyo nto ukuthi don't give up. But enye lesson engiyitholile from that story ukuthi look at other options as well, because while ehleli lana uJabu akahlalanga nje nawo waba busy ngesoccer, makufika abantu la bazo-recruit-a abadlali bebhola uyahamba uyalapho. Akavumelanga nje ukuthi ahlale ekhaya abe stressed anga-try ezinye izinto he did, and it ended up really working out on both ways. He got imisebenzi nangala kwi-soccer futhi waphumelela. So yeah, go and listen to that story, even if you are a graduate osekhaya, maybe it can give you hope, or umzali onengane nje ehleli ekhaya after graduation, go and listen to that story. Mhlawumbe khona ilokhuzana encouragement ongayithola kuyona. Le story ke sona besibhalwe uZibuyile Gabayi. Sibese siyamuva-ke laphana saya esitorini esibizwa ngokuthi kungenxa yami esibhalwe uSiphumelele Mfeki. Kungenxa yami-ke was a typical story that happens too often South Africa, where we trust iy'ngane zethu with othisha, and they don't serve us as we expected, because a lot of the times we think our children are safe with othisha, and then it turns out that they're not. So many children have fallen pregnant bekhuleliswa othisha, which is something that is really hard as a parent to understand, but it happens. So this was a reminder. I thought it was a reminder because isikhumbuzile nje ukuthi even when we teach our children about safety, and not only do we need to warn them about strangers, but we need to warn them about people that used to be trusted really in our communities. So now we have to teach our children that you cannot trust anyone. So that was a story. So you can go and watch it. Maybe you can get ideas on how you can speak to your children about how they can be aware of certain things when it comes to dealing with autism. I would say, when do they, when can they see what this relationship is becoming inappropriate now when they deal with teachers at school? Okungenxa yami-ke ububhalwe uSiphumelele Mfeka. Sibese siyamuva-ke la saya eLokhuzeni esitorini esithi Ingidi esibhalwe uNontobeko Ngqulunga. Yabona ingidi cishe sifane noyiphakade lami, ngoba indlela ingidi ebibhalwe ngayo, I think I read it twice before I understood what it was all about. Ingidi, really, I think they were trying to teach us about contraceptives and how young people can make decisions ukuthi ba-prevent pregnancies. And mina ilesson engiyitholile from lasa story ukuthi sometimes, because abantwana bethu they're not comfortable talking to us, they can find themselves having ama-complications athile with the pregnancy prevention. Even sebenama-complications basaba ukukhuluma nathi ngabazali, because we are not free to talk to them about these issues. So it made me want to find out more about options that our kids have when it comes to pregnancy prevention or family planning. And it made me also realize what is important that I make my kids feel comfortable in talking to me. So yeah, linama-lesson le story as well. Laphayana bekuthi uSile Mvilaso besenkingeni ukuthi wafaka i-loop lana, and then there's complications. Uyasaba ukusho ekhaya ukuthi wayifaka i-loop because nobody knew ukuthi she had done it. So that was a kind of a story. But if you want the details, go and watch the story. Samuva-ke la saya kwifa. Ifa belibhalwe uBalungile Dlulisa. Siyabonga-ke Madlulisa ukusibhalela le story. Sinobaba uMsimanga, as a struggle sikaBaba uMsimanga, who is diagnosed with cancer. Basically akanaso isikhathi eside ephila. Unkosikazi wakhe had passed a while ago, usele namadodana akhe awu-2. He's done well for himself in our business, and he's got things that he's going to leave behind for his children, but he's worried ukuthi his children nje abekho serious ngempilo, abafuni ukufunda. But at the end he finds a way to force them ukuthi babuyele esikoleni. If you wanna know ukuthi ubaforsa kanjani ukuthi baye esikoleni, go and listen to the story esithi Ifa esibhalwe uBalungile Dlulisa. And then senze istory la sesithi Ngehlulekile. Oh, this was one of the saddest stories, Ngehlulekile, because really, honestly, it's a story that happens more often in our society, where a woman is dealing with abuse in her home, and thina abantu abamnyama sesifila ngathi asifuni ukungena iy'ndaba zabantu, and someone suffers and we all know ukuthi they are suffering, but we don't do anything to help them until this big thing happens, and which is what happens with this couple. Honestly, at the end is like kwenzeka inhlekelele enkulu kunazo zonke iy'nhlekelele, and then that's when i-community stands up, there's 20 family stands up, but it's like it's already too late. So it's the lessons, the story, let's just say with, and as early as possible, when we see what someone is in this situation, we need to do something, even within our families. Khona families where a certain couple will be known ukuthi bayalwa vele bayashayana, and we don't do anything about it. It might be good you are waiting for inhlekelele ethile ukuthi yenzeke. So this story was just that warning for us to say, while you are sitting there nile nikhuluma ngabo ukuthi hayi ave vele abeve beshayana, one day kuzobe ku-worse than that, kuzobe kunesidumbu esiphumile. So is it not better to do something about it now? So go and listen to leso story leso sibhalwe uNonhlanhla Ntuli. Sibuye sesibuya futhi lapho senza isitori esithi Ibhodlela esibhalwe uPhumelele Hlele. Ibhodlela, it was about pop mabhodlela, pop champagne in the club. But it really was about it's a story about drinking and driving, honestly, because I don't think that the children that are in this story khona okubi abakwenzayo. They're just being iy'ngane, they've graduated, looking forward to a new job. They go and they celebrate the engagement for one of them. So up until they get in the car drunk, really there was nothing abnormal about them. They're just doing what young people do. But they make the biggest mistake of their life where they get in that car, all of them drunk, even the driver drunk, and it doesn't end. Kahle. So go listen to that story. Inama lessons nje nawe ngakukhumbuza ukuthi check yourself before you get behind the wheel of a car. Lesi story besibhala uPhumelele Hlele. Saphinde-ke salapha kuthemba lezi thembiso zami sibhalwe noBukhosi Sithole. Safunda ngo-Aphelele noZethembiso. Aphelele noZethembiso, they were friends, they had been friends for years, and then they decided ukuthi now they want to take it a step further and become more than friends, but they are not aware ukuthi they're only going to do that when they make that decision. One of them only has a few hours to live. So go and find out kuleso story ukuthi how does it end. It's also a sad story. Saphinda futhi saqhubeka laphayana sayokwenza usuku lweziqu. Usuku lweziqu, it's one of the stories where you feel like too little, too late, and it's really important. It's like it's really important to listen to our parents and take care of our parents as early as possible. And sometimes the damage that is done in our parents' health, basuke senze izinto ezithandwa izithina, iba too much ukuthi even sewulungisa izinto as umntwana, because this child is like urebhelile wenza all of these horrible things, uma wakho waze wagula, and then she changes, she starts going to church, and then she goes back to school, and on the day that she wants to show her mom ukuthi now I've made it, mom, I've graduated, everything, I'm sorry for all the things that I've done to you. That's the day that her mom dies. So it was a sad story too, but it also taught us we need to take care of our parents better. And because basuke bebadala, you never know if you're going to have a chance to show them and make them proud. So do that as early as possible. So usuku lweziqu belibhalwe uPhumzile Kunene. Bese siya esitorini lana-ke esibizwa ngokuthi ngenziwa ukungazi esibhalwe uNomthandazo Kufa. La besingenziwa ukungazi besifunda ngoSibahle lana. uSibahle ethathiwe, that neighbor who's a business man nonkosikazi wakhe ukuthi ayohlala nabo, mefika ehlala nabo bayamhlukumeza and all of that. Abasagcini iy'thembiso ababezenzile kuma-parents akhe ukuthi they're going to send them money, they're going to send it to school. So nje kugcina kungahambanga kahle ukuthi bathathe ngani, which mina lesa story I had a problem with it, because le nto yokuthi uthathe umntanakho nje ayohlala lena just because wena uyahlupheka as umzali ngeke ngayi-support-i, because it's like umntanakho is paying for ama-decisions akho. Ngeke ngifile kungahlali kahle kumina, honestly. So yeah, that's the story, but you can find out ukuthi impilo yale ngane igcina ihambe kanjani. And then bese siba nestori lana esithi uzibulalele wena, uzibulalele wena kubhalwe uPhilile Shangathi. Lana-ke kuzibulalele wena, uSabelo lana falls in love with intombazane, but intombazane cha, doesn't love him. But abazali bakhe more than him, it's like they fall in love with le ntombazane more than he does, because as much as he is willing to accept le ntombazane ayimthanda, abazali bakhe they are not taking no for an answer. They're saying na intombazane uzoshada yona, that's it. And then they end up going through extremes to make sure ukuthi le ntombazane ishada nengane yayo. and it doesn't end. It ends in tears, like for real, like real tears. So go and check out that story. And then saqhubeka senza isitori esibizwa ngokuthi Zibanjwa Kwezudlayo. Zibanjwa Kwezudlayo is like young people in high school bafunde e-Adams College, and enjoy nje yase-high school, and then there's a teacher involved. It's the same case as that one where you think you can trust the teacher and then you find out your kids are not safe with the teacher, and isigebengu lesi sentombazane esikhombisa enganeni yomfana kanti uthisha oyimithisiwe. Go and check out that story. Sibhalwe uBusi Maphumulo. Saqhubeka safunda isitori sithi Isibhamu. Isibhamu esinye futhi lesi is-complicated where this girl dates isigebengu nje sendawo saziwayo, falls pregnant, but lesigebengu uba umbodla sasazi ukuthi yena akafuna iy'ngane, so she must do something akhiphe isisu. So at the end it's like we see ukuthi and does she end up going ahead with the abortion, or does she keep the baby, and what is the reaction kambodla when he finds out ukuthi she ended up enza leyo decision that she ends up making. So go and see that story sibhalwe uphindile sithole. And then bese kuba isilingo sami. Isilingo sami-ke, it was also an interesting one because it's like this perfect family that has to deal with a son being gay. So it's not as about whether these parents are going to accepting Anyabo as he is or not, and how they're going to deal with that. So that's the story. Go and find out, go and listen to the story. Silingo Sami sibhalwe uSibusiwe Sihlophe. It's an interesting story, sinama lessons now for both kids and for parents too. And then the next story was Inhliziyo Necala. Inhliziyo Necala la sifunde khona ngoNomalanga. uNomalanga makes a decision. I guess it was a difficult one because when you're young, when she was young, she made a decision that she was going to do everything she can to succeed in life. And when she's on her way to succeeding, she makes certain decisions that almost compromises ilokhuzana future yakhe. And then on top of that, she has to make a decision on whether this circumstance of her decisions, she has what she does with this, and then she makes the biggest decision. That is also a big mistake that affects her whole life. She almost loses everything that she has because of this decision. And then we learn at the end, she's gonna have to live with really difficult consequences because of that decision. So go and read that story. I recommend this story for everybody, even people who are in tertiary, because these are kinds of decisions that students are making, and which are not easy to, and you can receive a lot of judgment when you make these decisions. So go and listen to the story. Sibhalwe uLuyanda Mngadi. So bese senza isitori esithi uthando-ke lesi nje sithanda kusenza. Ya uNtombi laphaya noZandile abathandane bamithiswa umuntu oyedwa uKhehla. Hey, my least favorite character in this book, uKhehla. But-ke go and read that book. Uthando olubhalwe uThenjiwe Njilo. And then sasisenza ugcobo lwendlalifa olubhalwe uThembelihle Langa, la uDelani Mathonsi okhule with a brutally abusive father, and at the end finds out ukuthi why ubaba wakhe was as brutal as he was, and at the end uyathola ukuthi kungani isibongo sakaMathonsi engasithandi kangaka, what is the reason for it, and uthola ama-solutions at the end of the book. But it's a very nice story to read. It's a story that tells our children ukuthi i-background yakho doesn't determine ukuthi ufikaphi nempilo, because uDelane ends up being the best doctor that there is in KZN after growing up in that environment where ubaba was abusive, waze washona uma wakhe, abusive to his mom, to him, waze washona uma wakhe, and ubaba wakhe after uma wakhe eshonile wamxosha endlini. Yabo nje that situation you would think I mean, uDelan could have been iphara nje and nobody would question ukuthi why beyiphara nje. He had every reason ukuthi, his life end up emgaqweni nje noma besigebengu nje. He had every reason, but he didn't. And he ends up being a doctor and saving lives. I know Dr. Law, when things are complicated and they need somebody with the skills who they call. So ifundisa abantwana bethu ukuthi hayi, there's no excuse. Anybody can be anything that they put their mind to. So nazo-ke iy'tori zethu ngizoyilinka zonke in my description. So guys, officially we put this book down. But we say, salute to all of the writers that put this book, wrote all of the stories. We say salute to Mam Dlamini for putting the book together. As Mdidiyelwa, we say salute to KZN for initiating and wrapping up with this project. And I hope also when I do research and I'm looking for other books that they've done, maybe KZN I'll be able to find a book that is just as good as this. Guys, it's different to read in Lokuzana incwadi that is written in your language and yesingisi. Not to say there's anything wrong with reading is reading. So ngisho ngafuna iLokhuzana incwadi yesingisi or not, but try and read incwadi ebhalwe ngesiZulu. If umXhosa, try and read incwadi ebhalwe ngesiXhosa, umSotho, umVenda, Mshangani. Read ngelanguage yakho. It's different, the experience is different. And the thing about it is that kuba story that we can relate to. It's not some people falling in love in some village, London village that you don't even know. So yeah, so officially guys, thank you so much for joining me in this journey. I'm introducing a new book. Not even soon. I'm gonna do the video today. I'm just not sure when I will upload it. I'm excited because I've already read the first chapter and it's the hit. Thank you so much for joining me. Ngithanda kakhulu.